welcome to our E-Rate 471 workshop here in Springfield. Like I said, we do have a few more that are supposed to be joining us today, so please make room for them when they do come in. We are going to go ahead and get started. Today's workshop, we will be doing the 471. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Mindy Fiskus, and I'm the Digital Access Coordinator for the Learning Technology Centers of Illinois. That is a long title to say I do lots of things involving connectivity and digital resources, including serving as your state E-Rate coordinator. So there are two state E-Rate coordinators, myself. I go out and about and help you to complete the forms for E-Rate, and Jamie Bader, who is at the State Board of Education, who does the validation of student counts and things like that. So we are working as a team this year. I also am part of the State Education Technology Directors Association. So I get together weekly with the other state leaders and we talk about things that are maybe not working well in the application or problems that arise that we don't have direct answers for. So please, if you find that you have questions in a PIA review or in an audit process that you need answered, reach out to us. That is what we are here for. Also, if you get through the application with us here today and you don't submit for one reason or another, maybe you don't have the appropriate contract that you're uploading, something like that, don't hesitate to reach out by email to me. I do have a lot of sessions happening across the state over the next few weeks, but I check email every night. So I am available to help you if you have questions like that. So today we're going to talk a little bit first about bid evaluation in a matrix example. I've been getting a lot of questions on what is included in a matrix and what should it look like and things like that. So we'll talk a little bit about that and then we'll move on to updating the connectivity info inside the EPIC portal. So hopefully you all have your logins to EPIC today. We'll give it a few minutes as it all asks you to update your passwords because that seems to happen every time you come to a workshop. So we will update that connectivity info. That information is drug into the 471. And in essence, what happens is you complete the 471 online in EPIC, and then it creates a PDF of your whole document with the certifications and everything. So it kind of takes a picture or a screenshot of the information that's there and sends it to USAC. So whatever is in the system when you click submit on that form is what's locked in. So we need to make sure that connectivity information is correct. Then and again with that, we're going to upload contracts. So in the old days of E-Rate, we used to do the application and then we did the item 21's attachments, which were the copies of the receipts and contracts, etc. Now they've kind of flipped that process with the new online EPIC system, and we are going to upload our contracts first. And so we'll go through that process and what that looks like in uploading a contract and what constitutes a contract and talk a little bit about that. And then once we get those contracts in the actual system, we can then turn around and put them in the form. So that will lock them then into the form. So there is a sign-in sheet floating around, and I'll bring it over to you guys in a little bit. Adjusting student counts within the 471 window, they locked us out of adjusting our student counts. So we did attempt to adjust our student counts at the 470. If by chance you missed it at the 470, there is a way to get around it. There's a couple of different workarounds for adjusting your student counts if you find that they are incorrect, and I'll explain where those are. And then we're going to actually do the application together today. It is kind of a choose your own adventure form. So if you're choosing the same service that I am, your screen will match mine. But if you choose a different service, then it gets a little awry. So this is just a few examples that we will do. We'll do one category, one example. And as part of that, we will use the tool where it copies an FRN from a previous year. So if you are in a previous year contract, there is a copy button. It does work pretty well. We will verify all of the information that is in it. I've seen a couple of weird things, but most of the time it's working pretty smoothly. So we will do a copy FRN tool, but before we do that one, we will do a new FRN. So I will show you how to place in a new FRN with a contract, attach your contract, etc. The copy FRN tool is almost too easy, so you may be pretty excited if you walked in today and you have all current contracts and you're just filling out the form and copying from last year. Please do look at the information. It is important to know where to click. There are a couple different places where information must be verified. So we're going to do that. And then there is a section of the form that has a line item. And then that's where we put our contract information and the type of service we're asking for. And then underneath that is a line item detail, where we put our dollars amounts and everything that we're claiming. And there's not a very good step-by-step how to get to the line item detail. It is fairly simple once I explain it to you, but it does look a little tricky and both screens look similar. So we'll spend some time making sure that you know which screen you're looking at, because everything tends to look the same on the system. We're going to talk about covering old and new connections. So if anybody in the room is moving to a new contract with a new provider, I encourage you to file for your old connection, whether it be a month-to-month service or something like that, and the new connection, because just because your provider has said to you, yes, I will have it lit by July 1st, just in case it's not, E-rate does allow you to apply for both of those so that you can continue to pay for the old service until the new service starts. You will get questioned about it in PIA review because it looks like you're double dipping, but I really just don't want anybody stuck paying for the entire cost of their current contract while they move to their new. And we've seen that happen in the past. So please do note that we will discuss that in the 471. One thing about the Category 2 funds that has changed up a little bit, and we will do a Category 2 example. In the past, it simply asked you to designate if everybody was sharing those items, and then it broke it out for you. And the dollar amounts were divided either by student population or by equally, which is usually how they did it, which is running into a problem with our Category 2 budgets because a lot of people had all of their things divided equally, but their student count is not divided equally. So if you have a grade school and a high school, you have 4 grades in your high school, 8 grades in your grade school, they have twice as much money for Category 2. And when we divided everything equally, we're now finding we're out of money at the high school, but we have a lot left in the grade school. And so is an update to the system where you can designate the exact dollar amounts that you want to come out of each building, which is really handy for trying to spend out the money we have. Again, Category 2 is eligible this year that we're applying for, the 18-19 school year, and the following year, which is the 19-20 school year. And then it will hopefully start over. We're hoping that the FCC will reinstate it to some point, and we'll know more about that, I'm sure, over the next year. We are in the middle of our process here. So on our beautiful chart we saw in the 470, we are here in the middle of the process. Hopefully you have submitted your 470 and waited your 28 days. If not, the system will tell you that you have not when you attempt to put something in. So there are some nice warnings within the system now. We're going to file the 471, and I want to pre-warn you right now, those that submitted last week are getting PIA review already. So PIA review, this is the first time I've ever heard of it starting like this early. But I was actually heard a rumor that the first wave of funding was going out this Friday. So we will see. But they are Johnny on the spot with PIA review this year. So know that you don't get like a reprieve for a month. Please feel free to ask for extensions. Especially when we hit March. I know a lot of you were trying to get through this process before we had testing. So if you are also the testing coordinator for your district, please feel free to say to them, we are state testing, can I have 10 more days or whatever to get back to you? Hopefully there won't be a lot of questions that you need a lot of help and research on, but know that that is already starting. What will happen after we get this PIA review is that people will start receiving funding commitment letters. If you receive the funding commitment letter prior to July 1st, you have your deadline for your 486 to confirm funding is October 27th. It's a loose date, but I'm pretty sure that that's right. I need to do the math for sure, but it's usually the 27th to 28th. So if you get it before July 1st, your deadline for this form is October. I would just encourage you to file this form as soon as you can. It certifies that service has started, so if it is a new service that you are getting, obviously you would want to wait until that service has been installed. Yes?
When does the window close for the 471?
Great question. So the window actually closes on March 22nd for the 471, which means that the window for the 470 closes on February 22nd. So the good thing about doing it all right now is if you find that we're in the mix that you forgot to put something down, we discovered something yesterday with our example district that we're using today, so I will point that out. If need be, you can still file another 470, ask for what you forgot, and go ahead and file a 471 by the 22nd of March. So for those of you who panic about it, we do have a last chance, I'm calling it a last chance 471 workshop that we're holding on the 21st of March. and that will be in Joliet. So not necessarily centrally located, but so we will be having that last chance one. We had to actually reschedule the 470 up there due to weather, and so then that set us back. And then I said, how do you feel about being the last chance? Because I think that that's something that we need. So we'll be doing that on the 21st of March. Again, please don't forget to fill out this form. This is the form that you cannot start getting discounts on your bills, and you cannot buy anything until after this form is completed. So please remember the 486, and I will be sending out reminders about that when I start seeing funding waves come across the state. Any questions about the steps in the process? Nobody yet? Okay, excellent. One of the things that we really do need to address before we get started in EPIC is the evaluation of bids. This is an example taken directly from the USAC site, so I do have the link down here on it, but it is talking about various things that are a requirement. The one requirement is price of eligible products and services. It does not have to be 50 points. It could be 30 points. It just has to be more points than anything else. So price of the eligible products and services does have to be the highest factor. After that, you have various other factors that you can decide. And I kind of liked the wording on the examples here. So you can talk about prior experience with the vendor, local or in-state vendor, things like that. You can also do reputation of vendor. So we've had several school districts in a bit of a panic getting bids from vendors they've never heard of before. And they'll post out to Tech Geeks or one of our other state lists and say, hey, has anybody used this vendor? If it's crickets and nobody's heard of them, you could give them a low score on reputation of vendor. Some of those are the ones that come up and their pricing is half as much as everyone else's, and that makes you a bit nervous. So feel free to score it that way. Somebody said I could do a local or in-state vendor, and if I know it's an in-state vendor, they could get 5 points, but if it's a local guy literally down the street, they could get 10, and I said absolutely. So however many points you want to give that, you are in charge of your matrix. You should set up the matrix first, and then put your vendors across it and compare each one. You'll notice here that down here it lists the disqualified vendor. So it does have a note at the bottom that vendor won, if they won, which they didn't in the point structure, but even if they won, they were all supposed to come to a conference at the district, and that person did not come. So that was something that was stated on the 470. You had to come to that conference, and they did not. So even if they would have gotten 90 points instead of 80, they still would have been disqualified because they didn't attend that stipulation on the 470. Any bids that if you stated in your 470, bids had to go to a particular email address, and they sent it to your email address instead of that email address, you do not have to consider them. They did not follow the rules and submit it. It would be kind of nice to make a note at the bottom of your bid that you did get some bids that came to your regular email address, but they're disqualified because they didn't follow directions and send it to the right address. So you can do that. If you did not get any bids, after your 28 days is over, you can go out and seek out bids. So if you put in for category 2 services, but nobody gave you a response on it, you can go out and seek that. If you put in for connectivity and nobody responded, and the only thing that you have is your current bill from your current provider, you can use that bill as a bid. USAC would like you to memorialize that you chose that vendor on that day in lieu of no other bids. They suggested you send an email to yourself so that you could capture the date and time. I say write a note on a piece of paper and put a date on it. You'll be fine. Nothing says that this has to be electronically done. You can do it on the pad of paper in front of you to evaluate your bids. Please do take a picture of it, so that when USAC asks you for a copy of it, you can provide it and PIA review electronically. But nothing says it has to be done all officially on a spreadsheet, though I have been seeing several people sending me Word documents with charts in them saying, how does my matrix look? So feel free. One other thing to note here, they did, obviously, in red is the 80 points that won. Notice they did not put vendor names at the top. They just had vendor 1, 2, and 3. You can put the names on your own document. There have been times where vendors who lost a bid will ask for a copy of your matrix. You are not required to give it to them. If you do decide to give it to them, please change the names and have it be vendor 1, 2, and 3. Like, don't target them against the people who beat them. Sometimes it is very good, especially for our local category 2 people who lose bids, to know that their pricing was way out of line with everyone else's, or that their customer service is a little lacking. I I think that those are usually the ones that ask about the bid and the chart to see are the ones who are either losing you as a customer, or our local people. It seems to be our local people tend to ask for that. Any questions about the bid matrix? Anybody have a really great factor that you use in the bid matrix that you would like to share? Everybody's like, no, yours is good, Mindy. We're just going to use those.
Is this is available to us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So on the USAC site under resources, I think it's called bid evaluation. There's a whole page, and this is actually a PDF. I just did a capture of this chart. So it is available, and you can access it at any time. They do have several other examples on the website. I just felt like this was the most detailed.
But the slideshow.
Oh, yes, the slideshow is available too. On the very last slide, it lists out the link. I will write it up here on the board in a minute, so you can have access to the slideshow as well. Yes?
So after I applied the 470, you start getting emails coming in from all over the place. And but we're just going with the same people we've gone with. It's just a month to month. There's no bid. There's no.
Okay.
So I don't even.
So you got you applied on the 470 and you started getting bids from others, and you said, "Hold up, wait a minute, I can't afford that stuff." Is that what you were thinking? Yeah. So you do have to keep the bids. You do have to say on the form, it will say how many bids did you receive. So you do have to say, I received this many bids for this service. And you do have to have a matrix to evaluate them. So you have to keep those. If a bid is just hey, I'm XYZ vendor, and I saw you put out a 470 and I'd like to talk to you about it, you do not have to reply or consider it. If it is an actual bid that says, I see that you wanted fiber internet access of 100 megabits and here is our dollar amounts, those are bids you do have to consider. Even if you determine to go with the, you happen to have a wireless point-to-point or something. So even if you continue with that service, you still have to say, I got these bids and I evaluated them and it's not something we can do. Affordability could be one of your factors. So that's totally reasonable. Yeah.
Can you disqualify a vendor? Can you put in the notes that if they can't bid for all of your category 2 needs?
That's a great question. So I don't think that you can disqualify them unless you said in the 470, you must be able to provide all of these items.
But you can't say that.
But you can say that. So you can say in a 470, I want one vendor who can supply all of my items. There was somebody that I worked with yesterday that said one of their factors was going to be complete, give extra points for complete bid, meaning I can get all my products from this person where the rest of these I have to piece it out. And they did give some points for that. So you can have that as a factor, but you can't disqualify unless you've said in the 470, I want all of my products from you. But you can say that. You can also say in the 470, I need your bids by this certain date. And that's really good to remember for next year. If you're early filers like this group was, you can say, I'm filing today and 30 days from now is when I'm picking my bids. Don't bother me after that 30-day mark. And then you don't have to deal with any bids that come in after that date. So there are some disclaimers that you can use along the way that might save you time and energy. But they do come out of the woodwork everywhere nowadays.
And what if a bid comes? Well, I got an email that the guy just shot me everything under the sun. It had like 16 options, none of which, some may have applied to me, some didn't. He was just hitting me with that.
It was like a PDF of like 7 pages that said, these are all our services and what they cost. Okay. I personally feel like that's not really a bid because they should be quoting what you asked for, but you can put it in a matrix and consider it as one of the bids. If your services were listed on it somewhere, people tend to, so for example, even our state network, when you ask for a bid, they'll give you what you asked for, but sometimes they even give you more than that. So if you asked for up to 750 megabits, they might give you that, but just for your own knowledge, they say, oh, and by the way, here's a gig and here's like 2 gigs. So if you get something like that, that's understandable. Please know, you can't go back, in order to take that gig amount, you have to go back to the 470 and request it. So that gets really confusing for people. It would be really nice if everybody just gave you exactly what you wanted, but sometimes they know it's a better deal for you to go to a higher level, and so they're trying to be proactive and get you to go, oh, I should file another 470. So,
I think we're in our district, I think this is hitting us, or we're gonna have to do this because we're at the end of contract year for our internet service and fiber. So it's, we did a 470 for that, and usually it was only one competitor, but now there's a new competitor in town, so we know that we're gonna get this. We haven't got them yet, but we're anticipating getting those.
yeah.
But seeing this,
Helps.
it helps,
Okay.
because to make our choice, but then one thing you also said, we can have both, we can apply for both, because it's gonna take a while. Say the new vendor that has come in has the winning bid, and it's.
Yeah. The touchy situation, okay, so when you have a current contract, and this is the case everywhere across the state, so always in the past, especially those of you who have a contract expiring June 30th, there was never ever anyone in the game before. You went from having a T1 line from Frontier to having internet access from the only guy that could provide it, and now all of a sudden there's 4 or 5 applications in front of you, and you're like, oh, wow, this is shocking. And that's happening everywhere, small school, big school, north, south, statewide. So this is the first time that we've really had to consider a matrix for Category 1 services, because before we just said this was the only bid that I got, this is the only player in the game, I choose this player. One of the things that you really do have to remember is if you switch and you're going from your old provider to your new provider, it technically is a month-to-month service unless you can get some kind of a 1-year contract from them to show to keep the pricing in line. So I think that there is kind of an underlying concern going on with districts that you can put in the old connection at the $1,000 a month that you're paying, but what if they jack up the prices for those 2 or 3 months that you're waiting for the install to happen? I think that's an understandable concern. Let's all hope that in good faith they don't do that all to you, and that you can keep with a month-to-month contract for those few months until the install starts.
But if that does happen, this could come into a factor of points for that vendor, because you're already established with one vendor.
And there are many people who feel that way. So if you're already established with the other vendor, you've had no problem with their service, and you get a new bid and it's comparable price-wise, and you're feeling like, I don't really want to switch, I'd like to stay with who I am, you can give prior experience with vendor points. So in that circumstance, the vendor that you are currently using would have the total 25 points, where the vendor that is giving you a bid that you haven't used before could have 0, because you have zero prior experience with them. So you can kind of weigh that out. I think that it's a concern, but it shouldn't prevent you from switching vendors if you're getting a much better deal, if you're getting more for your money from another vendor, because there are more cost-effective options. In addition to that change that we're seeing, lots of bids coming in, I'm shocked at the difference of cost of what build-outs and bids would be a year ago versus now. So all of a sudden, the pricing for how to bring the internet to you is dramatically lower in the last year.
I'm curious to see what those bids are coming back, what we pay now, and we have a 1 gig connection from each one of our buildings. It's a 10 gig total. And I'm anticipating that's going to be considerably lower. I mean, it was a 3-year contract, so that was 3 years ago when we did that contract. But I'm hearing, have you heard, is it indeed considerably lower, these bids that are?
Yes, well, I've seen it on those who are attempting to apply for the state match and get a build. But also, we have this wonderful non-for-profit partner that the state has been working with called Education Superhighway. And they have a website that is Compare and Connect K-12. It's all one word, compareandconnectk12.org. So which district are you? And I will look you up.
Unit 5, McLean County.
Okay.
McLean County, Unit 5 School District.
Okay, MC.
L-E.
Okay, I was spelling McLean wrong. Okay, so when I look at it, it will pull up your district, and it will tell me what your connectivity for your district is and who your provider is, etc. So it has taken this information from your E-rate applications. Let me make this picture a little bigger so you guys can see it. So it has taken this information from your E-rate applications of last year. So what you filed for was 7 gigabits of fiber, and it looks like the service provider is Serban, and it gives me the end contract date. So I can see what you applied for. But when I go back up to the chart at the top, I can say view all districts, and it will start populating districts around you and what they are paying. And the nice little thing with the math here is that they've done the math for you to show you how many megabits they're paying. So for example, this school district, which is 87, is paying $7 a megabit, where this one down here in Tri-Valley is only paying $2.59 a megabit. And then again, once I click on that school, I can click on the school name and see all of the details down here, who they're paying and what. So my guess is that Tri-Valley is using a different provider than you are. Nope, same provider. So you can kind of, it's a considerably less bandwidth at 482 megabits, which is weird. That's an odd number. Usually it's, but you can see here that you can kind of click across the state and see who else is using it. It is a smart website, so it tries to give you comparable costs. So it is trying to give you your provider. It doesn't always. One of the other examples that I like to use is Carrier Mills School District in the southern part of Illinois. And I try to tell people, don't get discouraged. Don't click on DuPage County and then click on yourself. It's a little discouraging. But you can see here where Carrier Mills is spending $10 a megabit monthly cost when you do the math, and it does give you the how much per student you're getting and does the math for you, where Galatia next to them is spending considerably less. Well, what the system doesn't know is that Galatia is part of a telephone co-op and they get a certain amount of bandwidth free as part of the foundation of that telephone co-op, where the other district sits outside of that county and couldn't take advantage of that service. So from provider, we see idiosyncrasies that the system doesn't know. But it is kind of a cool tool to go check out, definitely in your case, because you can go back up and you can go back to your provider if you look at the bill that you got and say, hold on, wait a second, why is 87 getting a better deal than me? And I don't know that they were getting a dramatically better deal, but that is a comparable district to look at for you. Questions about the Education Superhighway tool? Thank you for asking the question. It was a good place to discuss it.
And what was that website?
It is compareandconnectk12.org. So it's all one word. However, it only has school districts, public school districts. It does not have special ed co-ops, vocational co-ops, etc. Alternative schools, yeah. We don't see those in it. I mean, you can try, but the last I checked, it was just the public school districts. So you find a small school district around you to compare. It has been a really nice tool for those trying to negotiate with their providers to get better pricing. So good find for us. And they do update it frequently, so it is a great option to be able to check at. They also have, which is really handy for me, if you've listed a 470, they will put the 470 link there, and I can click on it and see your 470. So if there's seems to be a concern in the numbers that you aren't asking for enough bandwidth or that something's up, I can see your 470s right there and be able to reply to you. So I have been attempting to reach out to those who maybe filed 470s incorrectly before the deadline happens so that I can say, hey, I see something that's wrong with your 470, maybe you should refile. So those, there's only been a handful, but I have been trying to be proactive on that.